Most people believe that the difference between rich people and poor people is money. They think that if someone becomes wealthy, it must be because they had better opportunities, better luck, or a higher salary. But the truth is something very different. The real difference is not money. The real difference is the way people think. Because money is not just a financial game. It is a psychological game. Two people can earn the exact same salary. They can live in the same city, work the same job, and even grow up in the same neighborhood. Yet one of them slowly builds wealth, while the other stays broke for the rest of their life. So what creates this difference? It comes down to mindset, the psychology of how people see money, opportunity, and risk. One of the biggest differences is how people think about spending. Poor thinking focuses on consumption. When money comes in, the first instinct is to spend it. New phone, new clothes, a bigger car. But rich thinking works differently. When money comes in, the first thought is not spending. The first thought is ownership. Instead of asking what they can buy, they ask what they can build, what they can invest in, what can grow. Another major difference is the way people think about problems. When many people face financial struggles, they ask a very common question: how can I afford this? But wealthy thinkers ask a completely different question. How can I create this? How can I build something that produces this? This shift in thinking is powerful because one mindset focuses on limitation. The other focuses on creation. Another key difference is comfort versus growth. Many people naturally move toward comfort. They want stability, relaxation, and security. But wealthy thinkers often move toward discomfort. They learn new skills. They take calculated risks. They spend time building things that might take years to succeed because they understand something most people ignore. Growth is uncomfortable, and the future belongs to the people willing to grow. Another difference is responsibility. Poor thinking often blames external factors: the economy, the boss, the government, bad luck. But wealthy thinking takes ownership. They ask a different question. What can I do differently? What skill can I learn? What system can I build? This mindset changes everything, because when you take responsibility, you gain control, and control creates opportunity. Another powerful difference is the way wealthy people invest in knowledge. They read more, they study more, they analyze how money works, because they understand something very important. Your mind is the most powerful asset you will ever own. Skills can create income. Knowledge can create opportunity. And perspective can create wealth. Once someone begins to change the way they think about money, their actions begin to change as well. They start building instead of consuming. They start investing instead of spending. They start learning instead of complaining. And slowly, over time, their financial life begins to transform. Because wealth is rarely created overnight. It is created through years of decisions, small choices, repeated habits, and a mindset focused on growth. In the end, the psychology of wealth is not about money. It is about perspective. And the moment someone begins thinking differently, their entire future begins to change. Another powerful shift happens when people begin to understand time. Most people trade time for money. They work hours, they get paid, and the cycle repeats. But wealthy thinkers eventually realize something important. Time is the most valuable resource that exists, because money can always be earned again, but time can never be recovered. That is why wealthy individuals often focus on building systems, businesses, investments, assets, things that can produce income even when they are not actively working. This is the moment where the mindset truly begins to change. Instead of asking how much money they can earn, they begin asking how much value they can create. Value attracts money, ideas attract opportunity, and solutions attract wealth. Another important psychological difference is patience. Most people want immediate results. They want success quickly. They want money quickly. They want change quickly. But wealth rarely works that way. The people who eventually succeed financially are often the ones who stay consistent for years. They build skills slowly. They build networks slowly. They build opportunities slowly. And eventually, those small efforts begin to compound, just like money compounds. Because wealth is rarely about a single moment of success. It is about thousands of small decisions made over time. Decisions about how to spend, how to invest, how to learn, how to grow, and perhaps the most powerful psychological shift of all is believing that change is possible. Many people grow up believing that wealth is only for certain people, for lucky people, for people with connections, for people born into the right families. But history shows something different. Many wealthy individuals started with very little. What changed their lives was not luck, it was perspective. They began to see opportunity where others saw limitations. They began to see possibility where others saw obstacles. And once that shift happens in the mind, the path forward begins to appear. Because in the end, wealth is not simply about money. It is about how someone chooses to see the world. And the moment that perspective changes, everything else begins to follow. And there is another powerful idea that separates wealthy thinking from ordinary thinking. Wealthy individuals tend to think in systems. Most people focus on individual actions, working more hours, saving a little more money, trying to reduce expenses. But wealthy thinkers often focus on building systems that continue producing value over time. A system could be a business, an investment, a network, or even a skill that becomes more valuable every year. Instead of asking how much money they can make today, they ask what they can build that will still be valuable 10 years from now. This type of thinking completely changes the direction of a person's life, because when someone begins focusing on long-term systems, they stop chasing quick rewards. They stop looking for shortcuts, and they begin focusing on growth that compounds over time. This is one of the most powerful forces in the world. Compounding. Small improvements repeated every day. Small lessons learned over years. Small habits practiced consistently. At first, the changes are invisible. Nothing seems to happen. But slowly, momentum begins to build. Opportunities appear, skills improve, confidence grows, and eventually the results become impossible to ignore. Because wealth is rarely created through a single decision. It is created through thousands of small choices made consistently over time. Choices about discipline, choices about learning, choices about how someone spends their time and energy. And once someone begins thinking this way, their entire future begins to shift. Not because their circumstances suddenly changed, but because their perspective changed. And perspective is often the true beginning of wealth.